cold calling because from what I know of most brokers, they do a lot of it. They do a lot of cold calling. Why? Yeah. Well, they do a lot of it. They do a lot of cold calling because they don't know any other way to go. That's what they were taught. That's what they were exposed to. That's what they think they need to be doing. That's what they think is the best bang for their buck. When in reality, there's alternatives. The internet has opened up a lot of opportunities for people in the sales arena because there's a lot of information out there. So I was a cold caller for years. I built several businesses on cold call. But I look back on it and I see if I could do now, if I could do back then what I could do now, I had pretty good results, but I can't imagine how good the results could have been and how much less stressful my job could have been. Because cold calling's tough. We've all done it in this room, and we all know the ratio that you have to go through in order to try to win business. The key to winning customers without having to make 100 cold calls is to stop cold calling and start warm calling. The concept of warm calling, okay, is a concept that's relatively recent. Everybody's heard about working through referrals, and that's a great way to build your business. And that is a form of warm calling, but there's a lot of other opportunities out there. Soliciting potential customers who are not expecting to speak with you is referred to as a cold call. The cold refers to the fact that you haven't yet laid the foundation of your call. So they don't know why you're calling. You're just jumping into the middle of their day, trying to steal some of their time in an effort to try to sell them something that they probably already have or don't want. Okay? That's a fact. So that's a difficult proposition when you think about it. So a cold call example is, hi, I'm Ann from Acme Corporation, and I was hoping I could get to set up a time to stop by and show you the specs on a PowerPoint presentation for our new widget robot manufacturing system. That's a pretty well-written cold call, right? Not bad. How many appointments do you think you're going to get out of 100 phone calls? Now, the option is using what's called sales intelligence to solicit potential customers is defined as a warm call. The warm refers to the fact that you found a compelling reason to contact the customer. Let's face it, they're not going to know you. The majority of the people that you're going to call are not going to know your name until you introduce yourself. That's fine. That's not the cold part. The cold part is creating a compelling reason for calling them. So let me share with you the warm call example. Hi, Mr. Jones. My name is Sue Smith. I'm calling from Acme Corporation. I read the recent article in Widget Digest where your CEO, Ed Anderson, was quoted saying the biggest issue you're facing is your competition outsourcing to Asia. I found that comment interesting because my firm has a new widget robotic manufacturing system that we've implemented at companies like yours, and we've virtually eliminated the low-cost outsourcing as an issue while simultaneously adding more than 10% to our clients' bottom line. I'd like to show you how we can help you achieve similar results. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see the difference between those two calls. So the key there is what? What was it that allowed this person, what component of the warm call exists that didn't exist in the cold call? They knew more about the company that they were calling. They didn't just see a name and a phone number, dial it, and then try to ad-lib their way into an appointment or to a conversation. What they did was and the reality is they probably only had to do 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe 5 minutes worth of research, if you know how to do the research, to give themselves an advantage over the competition, everybody else that's cold calling. So what did he do? He found an article. He probably went online, probably went on Google and did a search for the company, and he found an article where the CEO was quoted, and he used that as a foundation to make a phone call. So you tell me the difference. Which one, if you were a buyer of transportation, which you are, because you're buying transportation all day long from your carriers, which one would you be more likely to respond to if you were in that situation? Yeah, this has a lot in it. First of all, it has a lot of inside information that most people would not know, because most people didn't read that article that are cold calling. And number two, it focuses on benefit, right? What's the benefit? Where's the benefit in this, Chris? Give me the benefit statement in here to this guy.
Add 10% to the bottom line.
Add 10% to your bottom line. Where's the benefit in the first one?
There isn't one.
There isn't one. Okay? But honestly, this is the difference. This is the baseline difference between a cold call and a warm call. The problem is getting people to do it, right? Is getting people to spend that time doing the research. And the reason why that's so challenging is because people don't know where to go. And even when they know where to go, they don't know how to search. They don't know how to find it. They don't know how to access the information. So the internet has opened up a lot of opportunities. So sales intelligence, because of the internet, buyers are more educated than ever. So to combat it requires a new approach. So what you got to remember is this. The internet allows you to become more educated about your customers and about the products that you buy and sell. But the people that you're selling to are more educated as well. So you got to take that into consideration. There's more information out there now on logistics and transportation and freight brokering and capacity and in their industry than there ever has been in the history of the world. I know that's hard to grasp, but that's the fact. That's the way it is. The information is there. So people know how to access it, put it to good use. So the buyers that you're selling to right now are the most sophisticated buyers in the history of buying. Not because they're smarter. Not because, genetics made us any more intelligent in the United States, because I think it's the exact opposite. It's because the information is out there and because it's right at their fingertips. They don't have to go to the, congressional library to access information. It's right, it's on everybody's computer. And as we know, the internet's not a new tool, but for a lot of people, they don't put it to use. So research shows that, I refer to it as SI, sales intelligence, is one of the most effective tools for improving sales effectiveness. Aberdeen Group study shows that 52% of salespeople that use SI exceed their quotas versus 26% for salespeople who wing it. Listen, I was a wing it guy for years. Wing it was my style. That's fine. And I had a certain amount of success. But I didn't have the tools that are available now. So if you don't use those tools and you don't use those new strategies and you don't evolve, you will die. You will not survive in the business world. It's the evolution of business. Those who are able to adapt and change thrive. Those that don't, they don't survive. So please, you gotta take this into consideration, because everybody in here, every single person in here is a salesperson. Whether you want to admit it, realize it, or care about it or not, you're a salesperson in one capacity or another. The customers you're selling to can be different. They may be your employees. They may be your vendors. They may be your partners. They may be your customers. They might be your kids. Okay? But you're a salesperson. So embrace it. Trust me. It's a fact. Research is a key differentiator between salespeople that take the cookie cutter cold call approach from top salespeople who know how to find relevant, credible, and objective information to help solve a customer's problem in a unique way. So again, in letter C, what's the most interesting word in that sentence? What's the word that sticks out to you? I like relevant, okay? Because relevance is subjective, right? Relevance to Mike is different than relevance to Jake. Even though they're in the same industry, it's totally different. Because they have different past, present, and future, right? So relevance is the thing that brings people closer. When you can talk, here, Google, we all know who Google is. One of the largest companies in the world, okay? One of the most successful companies in the world, has built their entire business around one word: relevance. When you type in anything in that search bar, their 100% goal is to give you the most relevant topic back the most relevant information back that you searched for.
Doesn't it say right at the top, relevance? I think it read it down.
There's different measurement components. They're always refining it. That's the difference between what made them, one of the major differences in what made them versus Yahoo and MSN and all the search engines that were out in front of them way before them. They weren't the first search engine, just so you know. They just focused on relevance because people want relevant information. When you're selling, they want relevant information. The relevance in that cold call versus the warm call was relevant, right? We were talking about their business. We were talking about their CEO. We were talking about their problems. We were talking about their benefit, right? So that's the relevance you need to bring forward. It's the difference between being customer-centric versus product-centric, right? You know what they care about? What do they care about, Jim? Yeah, them. What are you going to do for me? What's in it for me? So talking about yourself or talking about your company is the biggest waste of time that you can have in any sales call. What do you need to be talking about, Kevin?
The pain.
Talk about them. Talk about their pain. Talk about their struggles. Talk about their challenges. And use that information to formulate a, what, Kevin?
Solution.
A solution, right? We didn't rehearse this, believe it or not. So
I knew him for 20 years, I've never been able to do that.
So relevance is really important. To me, that's what sales intelligence gives you. Sales intelligence makes you relevant. For me, you know, I've myself made a mental switch from cold calling to warm calling. And I want to get everybody in the organization on the same page. I can lead a horse to water, I can't make him drink. So I'm giving you the water, all right? I'm giving you what you need in order to be successful. You gotta invest, you gotta drink the water. And then you gotta put it to work, right? So we can take, the worst part about these presentations and trainings and webinars and all these things is you get all this information and nobody ever puts it to work. Nobody ever tries it. Try it once. Try it twice. God forbid, try it every day for a month. But put it to work, okay? Because that's really the key. It's that whole, you know, knowledge is power. It's really not, right? Putting that to work, that's what's really powerful. This is a good point. What if I can't find any relevant information on a potential prospect? What if I go online and there's no information? Can't find a website, can't find a press release, can't find anybody's name, can't find anything. There's nothing there. My philosophy is you might want to try to consider qualifying them a little better, because if there's nothing out there relevant about them, they're probably irrelevant. Okay? They're probably just not anybody that you really want to do business with, to be honest with you. Because they haven't done anything. I mean, maybe they're brand new in business, and that might be a little egotistical to say, but the reality is how much are you going to have in common when they don't have anything going for them? Anybody that's doing any amount of business, you're going to be able to find relevant information. And if you still want to continue on, contact them with whatever limited information you have. You know, typically almost everybody has a website, even though 90% of them are terrible, and they're just poorly designed and they're not used for the right purpose, they're brochureware, there's still information there. So if all you did was spend 2 or 3 minutes on a website to educate yourself a little bit about their products, a little bit about some of the management team, and a recent press release, you're going to be doing, in my estimate, probably 70 or 80% more than the average salesperson, particularly brokers, because they don't do any of that. Okay? I'm telling you right now, I've met, I don't know, it's got to be somewhere between 500 and 1,000 brokers during my career, and there's very few of them that do it. Very few. So it's a great way for you to differentiate yourself. You can have the greatest relationship with somebody, whether they be a friend, whether they be a colleague, whether they be a vendor, whether they be a customer. If they ever question your honesty or your integrity or the ethics of which you operate, it's gone. Your relationship is over. It will never be the same, and it's probably beyond repair in most cases. In my opinion, it's probably beyond repair. If they ever get to that point where they're questioning your honesty or your ethics, you blew it. So I don't care, I don't care how painful it is not to lie to a customer or not to lie to a carrier, you're not going to win. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to win in the long run. You're sacrificing short-term pain that you don't want to have because you don't want to tell the truth versus long-term gain, which is what you might have if you can continue that relationship and they believe you're honest and ethical. So you think that you're winning, but you're really losing if you cut corners when it comes to being honest and ethical. And I'm not talking about big, bold, red, glaring, on-fire lies, okay? I'm talking about even those white lies. Those are the things that erode a relationship over time. All right? Find a way to separate yourself from the competition when it comes to drivers and dispatchers. All right, so we talked about in sales, you want to differentiate yourself from the competition from the rest of the brokers. Common theme here, right? You want to differentiate yourself when you're talking to carriers too. Why? Why do you want to differentiate yourself? Why do you want to separate yourself from the crowd? We're going to talk about how, but why? Yeah, you want to stand out. You want them to remember your name. That would be a start. You want them to remember the joke you told. You want them to remember the fact that you went to college at such and such. You want them to remember you. You got to be memorable. You got to separate yourself. Because if you separate yourself, you're going to win more of their time. And if you win more of their time, you have an opportunity to win more of their business. That's simple. It's really that simple. So the key to this is to stop talking and start listening. Here's what I found. Most calls that happen between operations people are very one-sided. The broker that wants something asks a lot of questions. And the broker that's being asked talks very little and tries to answer in one-word increments. Yes? No. They don't elicit a conversation. They just ask questions where you, number one rule in sales, don't ever ask a question you get a no answer to, right? So there's no dialogue going on. You got to get them to talk, and once they start talking, shut up and listen. Stop talking. They'll tell you what the secret is. They'll tell you what their pains are. Maybe it's their boss that day. Maybe it's their spouse that day. Maybe it's their colleague. Maybe they don't feel well. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Be that person that listens, and you will get more of their time. Because nobody else is willing to do it. Because nobody else will listen. And that comes back to letter A, which is balancing short-term. That's why I started out with balancing short-term need with long-term goals. Your long-term goal is to move more freight, make more money, offer a valuable, high-level service to your customers. That's the long-term goal. The short-term goal is, how do I get this load to pick up by 1 o'clock today when I don't have a truck and it's 11 a.m.? Right? That's the short-term goal. So we have to balance those things. But the problem is that it's so heavily weighted towards short-term goals that nobody makes the investment. Just that little extra investment, those extra questions and rapport building and relationship building with those carriers. It's a well-known fact, you all have better relationships. Most brokers have way better relationships with their customers than their carriers, and the relationships with the customers aren't very good. So what does that tell me about the relationships with carriers, right? So next, be loyal to them if you expect them to be loyal to you. This is one of those things that's hard on both sides of the equation. It's hard for brokers to be loyal to carriers, and it's hard for carriers to be loyal to brokers. Because they're surrounded by so much, what have you done for me lately, that it's hard to be loyal, right? But if you show loyalty, in order to get loyalty, you got to show loyalty. It's that simple. You got to take it in the pants sometimes when they need that favor, right? You want to be loyal. You got a guy who can run it for $50 cheaper on the other line, but you got your regular guy. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but he's there all the time. You've done a lot of business with him. What's the smart call? Run with the guy that you got to pay $50 more, even though you know it's costing you $25, $30, $40 out of your pocket. It's not about yield management at that point. Now, if you had two brand new carriers, one was $50 more and one was $50 less, no brainer. You know what you're doing on that one. But loyalty wins, and you have to, and you know what, not only that, you got to verbalize that loyalty. Listen, Mike, I got a guy on the line that's going to do it for $50 cheaper, but I'm going to give it to you because we've been doing business for the last year. Tell him that. There's nothing wrong with telling him that. Matter of fact, you get good mileage out of it. Why? Because it's the truth. It's the truth. Because I know everybody in here that's been in that position before where they've had to make a choice between a core carrier and a new carrier. One guy was going to run it cheaper. Has anybody ever been in that situation? Raise your hand.
Yeah,
You all have, and if you haven't, you haven't been in this business long enough, because you will.
every day.
Okay? You always have the guy that you've done business with before versus the new guy. All right? So be loyal. Show loyalty if you want them to be loyal to you. Be positive and solution-oriented if you expect them to do the same. If you want them to bitch, moan, and complain, bitch, moan, and complain. If you want them to be upbeat, fun, and and great to work with, then do it. Emulate what you want. Okay? It's that old adage. When they go above and beyond, this is another hard one for people. When they go above and beyond or save your butt, buy them a pizza. We just were having a conversation at lunch, and Mike told the group about a situation where a driver was getting loaded in Nevada in 110-degree temperature. He had to bring his reefer down to 20 below in order to get loaded, or they wouldn't load him. The temperature wasn't right. He told Mike, told dispatch, told the group, said, okay, he figured out a solution on how to fix it with no additional money. The product's still going to pick up and deliver on time. No issues. The guy was proactive, went and did exactly what he was supposed to do. Figure out a way to make it work. That guy, buy him a dozen roses. For God's sakes, do something. Because nobody else does that. And I will tell you right now, he will remember. The next time he's on your load, when it's a choice of cutting corners or doing it the way he knows he needs to do it, a $10 pizza is going to get you done the right way and the other guy not. That's really that simple. And I'm using that example because if you want to remember, this is about differentiating yourself. Remember, this is about separating yourself from the competition. That's how you do it. When a dispatcher does you a favor and bails you out of a situation where you know you're going to have a service failure, no matter what it costs you on that load, even if you didn't make a dime on that load, but you covered it because you made the commitment to the customer, and the guy bailed you out, you owe him. Bottom line. He sure as hell doesn't owe you. He didn't have to give you the truck. He didn't have to help you. He didn't have to do anything. You owe him. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. We lose sight of the fact that it's got to win both ways. It's got to give. It's got to be a give and a take. It can't just be take. You see too much take in this business, not enough give and take. Here's a really simple way to do this to differentiate yourself because nobody does it. Say great job and thank you. Just say thank you to these guys. Say thank you to a driver who delivers his freight on time.
Every day.
Just say thank you consistently and sincerely. I mean, there's a difference between saying, hey, thanks, or Mike, I really appreciate it. You did a nice job. Thank you.
Jack does
Big
every
difference.
call. Every call, Jack says, you did a great job, thank you.
And listen, you know what? And Jack is one of those guys that's always been a little more sensitive to carriers than other people. Sometimes too much,
Yeah.
but I'd rather have that than the other side. A guy like that will survive and thrive longer than a guy who isn't sensitive to those
It
carriers'
was
needs.
his care relation that saved the ice cream that you just talked about.
Yeah. So just say, and the dispatchers, the same thing. You know, not just the drivers, because you're dealing with drivers and dispatchers, the same thing. Just tell them, hey, I don't know if I've told you lately, but I really appreciate it. You really helped me out. If I can help you out, let me know. And then deliver. If he needs a favor, deliver. When you can, in any way possible. All right? So that's how you differentiate yourself. That's how you win carrier relationships. What you need to do is you need to develop relationships with multiple layers of that company. In account management, you want to develop a relationship with the executive level, right? The C level, the VP level people. Not a day-to-day relationship, but you want them to know your name. You want to be able to call them or email them personally and have them know who you are. You want them to know the relevance of you to their business. but you're not going to talk to them every day because they don't have time, and neither do you. A director or a manager level, you want to have a relationship with them. You want them to know who you are, you want them to know the relevance, and you want to have a rapport with them. You want to be able to call them up or email them anytime you want. And then you have a front line. That's the people that are actually doing the traffic and the dispatching and the tendering of the freight. If you have those three levels of relationships, if the first level turns over, what happens? What do?
You're your next contact.
You call the guy above him and you call the guy above him, and you, as soon as you find out, you're calling them, and you're in an effort to, what's your, even my first effort was, in order to perpetuate what you want to do going forward, but what should be the answer? How can I help you?
Help this
Now that,
transition.
I can help you during this transition. But if you don't have that relationship with the customer, you can't do that. When that relationship turns over, you start from square one, and we all know how difficult that can be, because the guy that comes in, or the gal that comes in that's doing that role, has their own agenda, they have their own relationships, and if the management team is typical, they're not going to go in and micromanage it. They're going to say, just get it done. They're going to give them free rein, and that free rein may cut you right out of the loop. No difference on the carrier side. Why do we look at it any different on the carrier side than we do on the customer side? We shouldn't. Should we? Why should we treat the carrier relationships any different than the customer? We shouldn't. So we need relationships with the owners. We need, in these larger carriers. Do you want to know why you guys don't get capacity from larger carriers? Typically, larger carriers don't like to do business, a lot of business with a lot of different brokers. They have a small group of brokers they do business with, but you can't usually get regular, reliable capacity from large carriers, right? Try to go to Schneider and get regular capacity, right? Try to go to Hunt and get regular capacity. You can't. It's tough. It's spot, it's hit and miss. You can't get any rhythm with them. It's very difficult, unless the moons line up perfectly. You want to know why you can't get any relationships with them? Because you're dealing at this level. That's why. You're not dealing at this level or at this level. You want to know why you're not dealing at this level or this level? Because either what I'm telling you is the first time you've ever heard it, which I doubt, or it's uncomfortable, or you're just not a good investor. Probably one of those three. But I want to point out the glaringly obvious. We all have room for improvement, right? You got to be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm doing a lot of things right, but there's a lot of things I could do different, right? And these are some of the things that you can put to work today, tomorrow, next week. Are they going to pay dividends immediately? Maybe. But a month or 2 or 6 months down the road, you're going to see benefits. Trust me.